Hello and welcome everyone. My name is AtlerGee and this is an exclusive Gamers Class item guide video for raindrops and when to buy them. The higher you go in the average MMR, the more raindrops are picked up, and raindrops are picked up very frequently in professional games. And it's one of the best early game items if you buy it under the proper circumstances. And this is also one of the reasons why raindrops are available at minute 3, because they're very strong and they can win you lanes straight up if you buy them in a good scenario.
If you like this kind of content, go to gamersguys.com. For just $10 a month, get your replays analyzed, watch masterclasses with pro players, join weekly coaching sessions, win prizes, and more with our Supreme Dota 2 membership.
Raindrops come along with a few hidden mechanics that we should know about. So anything above 50 magic damage taken before reductions will trigger a charge and therefore block 120 magic damage. Mana Regen is active while you have charges, so even if you're down to 1 charge, the Mana Regen component is still active. And when it's triggered, it will block 120 magic damage before any form of magic reductions. So first you get nuked, and then the block triggers and it will remove the portion of the block, so 120 damage, and then for the remaining damage the magic resistance is applied. And another very important mechanical side note that not a lot of players know about is that there is a priority when it comes to any form of damage blocks, and raindrops have the highest priority in the game, which means that if you have raindrops in your inventory and you get shielded by anything that absorbs or blocks damage, the raindrops will still be procced and you will lose a charge. So to give you an example, if you get shielded by Abaddon, by Apothic Shield, and you have raindrops in your inventory and you get nuked with magic damage, a charge will be taken away and the damage will still be removed from the shield itself. The same applies to refraction. So whenever there's like external damage blocks in the game, make sure that you don't buy raindrops, and if you have raindrops and you interact with those external damage blocks, that you might want to backpack the raindrops. Or if you play an Abaddon and you see someone has raindrops in their inventory, that you don't pre-shield any magic damage. So first you let them get nuked, so the raindrop charge procs away and removes a certain portion of the damage, and then after the nuke was fired and the raindrop charge is gone, then you apply the shield. Same for refraction. I want you to give you an example how good raindrops actually are, and I want to go into an example when it comes to effective health gain having raindrops in your inventory. So a spell does 300 damage in most cases and on max level. So if you have raindrops in your inventory, you only take 180 damage from the 300 damage nuke, and that damage will get reduced by magic resistance, so 25% less damage taken from the remaining 180, which will leave you with 135 damage taken. And without raindrops, if you take a 300 damage nuke, you take 225 damage. And if we take a look, for example, at Grimstroke, base HP is 620, so around level 3-4 you will sit around 700 to 800 health. So the difference between raindrops and no raindrops is like 225 damage taken minus 135 damage taken. So with raindrops you take 90 damage less, and this is a quite huge amount, because if we think about it, so on level 3 on the most heroes we have 700 HP and we block 120 magic damage that's incoming. We sit at 820 HP against magic damage instead of 700 HP, which is roughly an HP increase of 70% just by having raindrops. So if we take a look at other items, raindrops are basically the most cost efficient thing for the slots. Importance is also that raindrops allow us to basically survive a lot of one-shot combos early on, because we increase our effective health. And if raindrop charges are triggered multiple times in a fight, it's just insane, because suddenly you have additional 240 magic damage HP basically, and it just helps us immensely staying alive during the laning stage against heroes that can one-shot us. So for example a Tiny or an Oracle, and this is something we want to play around. Another overlooked component of raindrops is the mana regen. So the mana regen on raindrops is pretty nice, because it's like 0.8 mana regen, and you cannot overlook this fact. So the important part is that we want to try and keep at least one charge for as long as possible, while of course we have space in our inventory. So once we drop down to one charge, we might want to backpack it here and there to keep the charge, and that the charge doesn't get randomly triggered away. And if you think about it, the mana regen allows you to basically cast your teleport scroll for free. Because we take a look at the teleport scroll, it costs 75 mana with 80 seconds cooldown. So if you have raindrops in your inventory for the entire duration, we will get 80 ticks multiplied by 0.8, which will be 74 mana during the TP scroll cooldown. So we just need an additional 9 mana to cast the teleport scroll. So just by having raindrops, we can basically use our teleport scroll for free while out on the map. Right now it seems raindrops are pretty broken, but there is a lot of scenarios where raindrops can be really bad and should not be bought. And this is because there is damage over time effects in the game. So raindrops can perform really poorly against certain heroes, and it is very crucial that you look out for these heroes, because damage over time spells are basically the bane of raindrops, and you should avoid buying raindrops versus any form of damage over time effects that do more than 50 magic damage per tick. And it is also important to look out for the initial damage over time damage that a lot of damage over time effects bring with them. And those pre-dot damage ticks will most of the time proc one raindrop charge away, and after that the damage over time effects last on your hero, and you will maybe even lose more charges. So if you get hit by a damage over time effect and you have raindrops, make sure to instantly put them into your backpack so you don't lose charges to the damage over time effect. And to name a few heroes that can be very troublesome for raindrops. So a good example is Sniper with Shrapnel. So Shrapnel has a super high damage once it's level 3, and once it's level 3 it will instantly trigger a raindrop charge if you walk into the Shrapnel. The same applies to Queen of Pain, which is even worse. The initial Shadow Strike damage once it's level 2 will instantly trigger a raindrop, and the damage per tick on level 2 is already 50, so if you get hit by the Shadow Strike, it will instantly remove a raindrop charge, and once the raindrops become off cooldown again, you are still affected by the damage over time, and it will remove another charge. The same applies to Venomancer, which has the same mechanic, and there's a lot of more damage over time heroes like Viper and Bat Rider. Against these heroes you really want to avoid raindrops, and if you have raindrops in your inventory and you fight these heroes, make sure to backpack the raindrops before the engagements start. But it is important to note that the damage over time effect heroes can often be comboed with other heroes that can burst you down, like a Tiny, and in those cases you still want raindrops to not feed against these heroes, so the additional health from the raindrops might allow you to stay alive when they try to one-shot you and get off spells and maybe counter kill them. So you just need to be super careful when you pick up the raindrops against damage over time heroes, and make sure you backpack them every time you fight those heroes before the fight starts. And if you get hit by damage over time effect, which can happen here and there, just make sure after the first tick that you instantly backpack the raindrops to not lose additional charges. So let's hop into the use cases for position 5 to 1. So for position 5, you want to buy raindrops anytime you face heavy magic damage, harassment by heroes that use a lot of mana while doing so, and buying raindrops will basically drain those heroes quickly out of mana if they try to harass you. So a few examples, in this game we have Visage, so the nuke does insane damage and has insanely high mana cost, so if you buy raindrops against Soul Assumption, Visage will basically go out of mana. Some other examples would be Lich, Luna and Oracle. They also have very high mana cost. Bane would be another example, so in those cases you want raindrops. And raindrops for position 5 can also be used against heroes that can burst you down very easily. So I want to take a look at this replay here in particular. So we have Mars Visage here with 2 magic damage nukes. It could be Mars Tiny, Mars Earth Spirit, and we will see an engagement here. And my raindrops are not there, so the courier is at the tier 2 tower right now, and I will simply die here just because there's too much damage. So I would have blocked the entire spear damage here easily. So it's 175 damage, the raindrops would have procced, would only take like 55 damage, magic resistance applied, then I would take like 40 damage, and the only thing that's scary is the Soul Assumption afterwards. And if we let this engagement play out, here's the Soul Assumption, I will die, and I would have more HP here from the initial spear. Sadly my raindrops are not there, so against certain combos like this you want raindrops on position 5 just to make sure you survive the initial damage. Then you can counterplay. If you're lucky you survive long enough to get the EXP and you will simply trade. In this particular case I die first, I don't get the EXP, we still get the trade, but it's bad for me as a support because I don't get the EXP. For position 4, raindrops are also frequently bought, and I think there's a few rules. So raindrops for position 4 should be used the same way as they are on a position 5 if you're laning, of course, but for position 4 there's an additional rule that applies, and oftentimes position 4 is played by classic roaming heroes, and those classic roaming heroes all have the same problem. They're mana starved. So to name a few examples, we have like Tiny, Tuskar and Clockwork, and buying raindrops on these heroes is super beneficial for you because they have a very low base mana pool, and any little bit of mana regen you can get will help tremendously, especially if you have to play a very active game and you need to TP a lot, because we said the raindrops basically let you TP for free, and on those heroes I would always pick up raindrops during the laning stage and try to keep them as long as possible. Another thing is the position 3 raindrops. Anytime you face heroes with sustained nuke harassment, you can get away with raindrops basically. Because by buying raindrops you can drain the enemy support's mana while not taking too much damage, and this will basically allow you to stay in the lane very easily. So in this game, for example, we have a bounty hunter and a drow. So if the LC picks up raindrops, he's basically immune to the shuriken toss damage, and this is the only form of magic damage they have. So if they want to bring down the Legion commander in this setup, they need the shuriken damage to make sure they basically bring him in kill range. And if he has raindrops and the shuriken toss is thrown out, he will basically take 0 damage from the shuriken toss, and he can basically stay forever in lane because they can never ever kill him. He will always get away, and in those scenarios you want raindrops on a position 3. Let's take a look at the mid lane. So for mid lane, raindrops can also be very beneficial, but they're not picked up that often. But I still want to talk about the mid lane scenario. So anytime you play heroes that might one-shot you with a certain combo. So for this game, raindrops would be really bad because we face a Queen of Pain here in mid. On the other hand, you could potentially play raindrops versus the gyro if he goes for a homing missile build. But let's take a look at some heroes that really suffer when you buy raindrops. So Wind Ranger, for example, if you cannot dodge the power shots, you can buy raindrops, and you will take very little damage if you tank some power shots here and there, which can make your lane very easy. The same applies to Shadow Fiend. So I think raindrops are a hard counter if you play against Shadow Fiend, because he needs to stack raises on you, and he will raise you one time, and you will basically be very comfortable even if you tank the second raise, because the first raise will basically do very little damage and you will never drop in kill threshold for a triple raise combo. Another example would be Lina, which follows the same idea as Wind Ranger. So she will basically nuke the wave constantly, and sometimes you maybe get hit by a Dragon Slave, which can happen here and there if you're not aware that it's casted, especially at nighttime, and having raindrops will simply allow you to block the damage and not suffer too much damage. And also, if these nuke heavy heroes try to go for a kill and you are under your tower, it is very likely that you survive those engagement with raindrops, because the damage is not high enough to instantly burst you down even if you tank all the spells. And usually those heroes try to chase you afterwards under the tower, if they maybe get a lucky rune like a haste or whatnot, and the raindrops will come off cooldown for the second round of spells, and you will live in most scenarios. For position 1 players, raindrops are usually not picked up frequently, because people buy like Wraith Bands and Midases, and they play very greedy at the moment. And the worst case scenario is that most carry players just abandon the lane and go into the jungle. But I think for carry players there is a few examples that can support raindrop pickups, and I want to name a few. In this particular game, for example, the Slark could buy raindrops against the Mars. If he is in a one-on-one scenario later on. The landing stage already broke down here, but around the 6 to 7 minute mark, when the ultimate of Mars is available, the Slark could pick up raindrops to avoid getting one shot. And by avoid getting one shot, he can guarantee to get Shadow Dance off and he will survive. And in those scenarios, when you are scared of getting one shot but you have a free way out, you want to pick up raindrops. Another example would be Void with his Time Walk ability. So if you face very, very strong lanes that could potentially burst you down with a lot of stuns, so a bread and butter lane at the moment would be Slardar and Lina, or Mars and Lina, so they will combo all their spells and chain them to stun you for a very, very long duration, and with raindrops you can basically stay alive during the burst, which will allow you to time walk off all the damage and you will simply stay alive. And in those particular cases I would recommend that you pick up raindrops on a carry, but these cases are rare, and in most cases you want to just play as greedy as humanly possible on a carry, and if the lane gets too hard, simply abandon it. So my name is AdlerGG and thanks for watching.